Hello, my name is Dane Chekalinsky and I'm with the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. In coordination with the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce and the City of Plymouth, Wisconsin, we provided a real estate walking tour of Plymouth, Wisconsin in order to get people more familiar with the community. Prior to that tour, this presentation was shared with the group in order to kind of set the groundwork and what's been happening in Sheboygan County, Wisconsin, and specifically drill into Plymouth in terms of understanding what's happening development-wise and where the opportunities lie. I would like to share this presentation with you to encourage you to consider and learn a little bit why Plymouth, Wisconsin is truly a special place. First of all, some basic demographics. The city has a population between 8,000 and 9,000. The county itself is a population about 115,000, similar with our retail trade area. And Plymouth lies geographically in the center of Sheboygan County. Recent headlines have really started to show Sheboygan County starting to accelerate in economic growth. One of the key figures that we look at is how optimistic is the area business community, and the Sheboygan County Chamber of Commerce did a survey that asked businesses how optimistic they are about the local economy. And it turns out they answered about 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 businesses answered they felt very confident. Statewide, that number was closer to 50%. So Sheboygan County is twice as optimistic about our future as anything else. Highway 23 is expanding this between Plymouth and Fond du Lac. It'll be very interesting to see what that additional road capacity and transportation capacity will bring for the Plymouth area. I'm really excited to see how now Plymouth is basically going to have 3 4-lane roads heading out in different directions. In addition, Sheboygan County has been noted as a top place for millennials, a top place for older Americans, a bicycle-friendly community. This area has gotten a lot of recognition for quite frankly just a high quality of living, and that's probably a combination of our strong job market, combination of a relatively low cost of living, extremely low crime rates, great schools. It's really a blend of all these different things that really makes this area very special. When we talk about Sheboygan County, one of the things that we often overlook is the fact that to the east of the county lies beautiful Lake Michigan, white sand beaches, really great areas. In the northern western area, there are many amenities that have to do with the Kettle Moraine State Forest. So we have forest land on one side, beautiful lakes. We have a beautiful lake on the other. Residents of Plymouth and Sheboygan County really live in the middle of a resort. In terms of economic growth, Sheboygan County for the last several years has really been, in terms of unemployment rate, in the bottom 3 of the state. We've always enjoyed one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state of Wisconsin. And even as we look at our multi-year trend, one of the reasons for that is our tremendous job growth. I mean, in the last 3 years, Sheboygan County has created more jobs and grown our labor pool more than any other major MSA in the state of Wisconsin. In addition, we're still finding over 3,000 jobs available within driving distance of this county, within this county and in short driving distance. What that essentially means is that Sheboygan County is kind of officially now the fastest growing MSA in the state of Wisconsin, which leads to tremendous economic opportunity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's been happening in the county and start narrowing this down closer and closer into Plymouth. So in the service territory, one thing we're always asked as we represent the entire county is what's happening with Acuity. Well, Acuity has just finished a major expansion. It just announced another expansion with more parking facilities and a recreational facility. They continue to kind of impress with both their facilities and continuous growth. FedEx opened up a new distribution system. One thing you may or may not know about FedEx is it has several divisions. The division that just opened up a location here is actually their freight service, which has to do with shipping pallets. And from an industrial standpoint, one thing you may or may not know is Sheboygan County is the 3rd highest concentration of manufacturing in the nation. And having this ability to quickly ship pallets in our area is actually a pretty good strategic advantage for us. We're happy to see this new center just open up. Aurora is on the medical side. Aurora is broken ground on a brand new $324 million hospital in the village of Kohler. This is the single largest commercial development project in Sheboygan County's history in terms of financial investment. It'll take several years for it to be open, but this will ultimately become a true gem of the entire area. Not to be outdone, its competitor Purveya just opened up a 60,000 square foot office building, also increasing the amount of medical services in the area. So things are looking up from the service side. In tourism, the John Michael Kohler Art Center is building the first of its kind art preserve, which enhances their services and self-taught artists. That's just east of Plymouth. Also just east of Plymouth is Kohler is moving to try to develop a new golf course. If developed, this would be the Kohler's fifth, but our sixth top 100 public golf courses in Sheboygan County alone. That's top 100 in the nation is here, so we are truly a golfing destination. And kind of feeding off these tourism is there are two new hotels that are being developed on the eastern part of the county, a Fairfield Inn and a Hampton Inn. Now, the interesting part is that the City of Plymouth has embarked on a hotel study. The first parts of that study have come back relatively positive, and we're hoping that hotel development will happen in the City of Plymouth. Just to the north of Plymouth is a huge automotive industry cluster, mainly revolving around Road America. And we've seen brand new car condos pop up, as well as some other amenities dealing with these classic cars and true car lovers. The food industry is really, I think, where Sheboygan County shines, and particularly Plymouth. But there's been a lot of things happening in Plymouth, so well, around the county. So the first is a Plymouth-based company, Masters Gallery, just built a brand new plant in Utzberg, Wisconsin. This plant is up and running and supplying jobs in the area, really good jobs. Millport Sigma is actually a chemical company. It's owned by Merck. And they just opened up a brand new plant. And the reason, and you might be confused why a chemical company is in the food area, is because this new $64 million plant is a food additives and flavorings division that was built. And this was announced a couple years ago. And it was announced right around the same time that Foxconn was. And of course, Foxconn in the state of Wisconsin took all the headlines. But the reality is this was the next largest industrial expansion at that time. And it really got overlooked. But it's a tremendous commitment to this area. And the other, one of the name brand companies we have in our backyard, Johnsonville, just finished a brand new headquarters. As a matter of fact, Johnsonville is actually in Plymouth, Wisconsin, controls its own electric utility, and this is actually Plymouth's electric utility's largest customer. Specifically within the Plymouth area code, a lot has also been happening. So the first thing is a brand new agronomy plant. Country Visions Co-op just built a brand new facility on Railroad that was completed last year. There's been a tremendous amount of cold storage coming in. Plymouth has always said, Plymouth actually owns the tagline, cheese capital of the world, and there's a huge reason for that. And it's home to 4 major cheese processors, and of course all those cheese packaging and processors rely on a massive amount of cold storage because cheese needs to be aged for a period of time. And so in the last several years, about 750, probably over 3/4 square feet have been added in the cold storage area in Plymouth, Wisconsin. So again, it's a tremendous investment in the food industry. Just recently in the local newspaper, it mentioned that 3 industrial expansions were going to be happening. All of these went in front of Plan Commission, all of them passed, and so we'll be seeing Masters Gallery add some space at one of their Plymouth facilities, Wisconsin Plastics add some space, and of course, more cold storage. What would Plymouth be without investing in that? The other thing that's really cool about Plymouth is that they have had recent investments in banks. Bank First National built a brand new facility, and Hiawatha is building their brand new headquarters in Plymouth, Wisconsin. And across the county, we've seen about 5 banks invest. And I think that's a true testament to how strong the local economy has been. When you see banks adding brick and mortar, you know something special is happening. And we're very proud that these banks and others continue to make investments in the area. Now, the one thing that all companies are having a challenge with is talent. And of course, if I'm looking at investing in real estate or investing in an area, since everyone is having these issues, I want to know what the locals are doing in this area to free up this major bottleneck of all companies. And I can tell you, Sheboygan County and Plymouth, Wisconsin have done a fantastic job of being proactive. One of the areas that Plymouth has really excelled in and been way ahead of the curve is investing in its high school. And quite frankly, at first they partnered with LTC in Plymouth and built the Science and Technology Center. That was 5-6 years ago already. And a lot of people heard of the Red Raider program in Sheboygan, but this predates that by several years, adding brand new up-to-date technology in the high schools along with college level courses. Not to be content with just on the manufacturing end, of course, Plymouth is the center food capital or cheese capital of the world. They followed that up very quickly by raising another $1 million plus to build a food science and agricultural center, primarily focused on not only growing plants, but also food safety programs, and essentially, bolster that industry in the area. It's a truly marvelous facility. The school district in Plymouth has done a fabulous job of working with companies in the area and trying to offer programmings in extremely practical areas. On top of what the local school districts have been doing is that all 9 public school districts in Sheboygan County all belong to a program called Inspire Sheboygan County. And what it is, it's one thing to have the technology in your high school. It's a totally another to offer co-ops, internships, job shadows, what we call work-based learning opportunities to students. And so far, countywide, this grew at a last basically 3 years as we've had 0 co-ops, 0 work-based learning opportunities, and it's grown to 449 work-based opportunities just through March of this last school year. And so Sheboygan County, matter of fact, the state of Wisconsin's looking to Sheboygan County and the success we've had in integrating high school students with area employers, and they're trying to take away key things to spread it throughout the state. So Sheboygan County is a tremendous leader in making sure students get to test drive careers before jumping into them. It's been a true success throughout the entire area. Lakeland University does have a Plymouth address. And they're the second school in the United States to offer a truly comprehensive cooperative education program. Essentially, that means is these students work for companies for all 4 years that they attend and get their bachelor's. And these are essentially paid positions. And what it has started to do is really open up the pipeline of people that Lakeland brings in. Lakeland brings in a lot of students from outside the area, and this gives us a reason to keep these students, these bright young individuals in our community. Also with talent is Sheboygan County's entrepreneurship streak has also started to skyrocket. We created a partnership with the Small Business Development Center out of UW Green Bay. They provided us with these data. So there are small business development centers around the state of Wisconsin covering the entire state. Matter of fact, there's one it's a federal program, so they're in every state. And what they did is they looked at the amount of capital raised through clients of the Small Business Development Center. And what they found out was that Sheboygan County, even though we're only 2% of the population, is basically generating 18% of the entrepreneurial activity through their services, which is truly a very, very strong testament. I believe county number 2, I'm not supposed to say, but I'm pretty sure that's Dane County. So again, we are definitely showing how quickly we're accelerating in these fields. Housing development has been kind of one of the main emphasis of the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation in the last few years, with well over 3,000 jobs available since we started tracking that in about 2015, 2016. We know that our housing markets are tight at all levels, and we've been our best to try to relieve the pressure. One of the key data points that we looked at was total number of housing units, and we looked at this several years ago. What we found out is that the growth in housing units in Sheboygan County really lagged behind the rest of the state. And it's lagging behind an area that, quite frankly, again, is now the fastest growing MSA. So when we ran the back of the envelope math, what we found is just to hit the state average of 2.6% growth throughout the end of the decade, we need to put 1,400 units online by 2020. in order just to hit state averages. And again, from an area that's growing faster than the fastest growing MSA, we really need to beat that number. And so what we've done is first we focused on apartments, and Plymouth has had investment in apartments by Pre-3, 96 units called Granite Trace. Out of the kind of 800 units built, another 400 in progress, that's essentially it in Plymouth. So I do think that there's some opportunity for additional multifamily growth in the city of Plymouth. When we looked at owner-occupied housing, we saw some interesting trends. So this is MLS data, and we can see single-family in that orange line. Since 2011 through 2018, the number of single-family homes on the market has decreased by 60–70%. And we see the same thing in condo listings. So our market is having fewer and fewer units available. But on the same side, our median sale, the bar graph, shows that our median sale prices have increased by about 21%, and our days on the market have decreased. So we're seeing fewer units, they're going for higher prices, and the days on the market is increasing. This is the sign of an extremely healthy market. Couple that was, there was a Harvard study that came out a few weeks ago that looked at residential land prices and how much is land going for. And Sheboygan County had the fastest growth in residential land prices in the state of Wisconsin. So again, more signs that show that our local economy is incredibly robust. So those 80–90% of companies who are optimistic have very strong reason to be optimistic about this market. So what we did was, just like the apartment piece, is we studied it first. Before we ask someone to invest millions, we want to make sure we have some fair baseline data. That's exactly what we did. We partnered with the city of Sheboygan to do a condo study. Now, even though that study was focused on the city of Sheboygan, and specifically downtown Sheboygan, it did have data countywide and did make a countywide recommendation. And their countywide recommendation came out was we needed 320 condos in the next 5 years. Now, I can tell you that of all the condo projects we've had, we're probably only about the 120 level, so there's definitely market share to be had there. On the single family side, we took a little bit different approach on this. We looked at the number of annual home starts for a fictitious community of 5,000 residents. And what we found out was that Sheboygan County, for an average community of 5,000 residents, is only producing about 7 homes a year. The state average is 10. You can see what Eau Claire and Dane County, who have done extremely well for themselves, how many homes they're producing. So essentially, the condo study also backed this up. They also said that on your single family side, Sheboygan County should be building about 230 owner-occupied housing units per year. In the 1990s, Sheboygan County was producing well over 300 units. So to say that we need to get back to 230 is, to me, not a stretch goal. I think that's extremely conservative. Last year, we dug about 165 basements. That's obviously up from the middle of the recession when this area was building 60 to 80 a year. But still, according to our study, we're only producing about 7 out of the 10 housing units that we need every year. So again, there's opportunity. So our organization gets the luxury of promoting so many great communities throughout Sheboygan County. And so every community has its own local flair, has its own local vibe, and has some very distinct advantages. So here are some things that, from our perspective, what we find unique about Plymouth and serious reasons why to consider investing in Plymouth, Wisconsin. The first is, this was kind of mentioned, Highway 23 is going to 4-lane. This is the main east-west connector between Sheboygan and Fond du Lac. Basically means that 4-lane will get us, we can get to Milwaukee and Madison, 4-lane the whole way when this is done. And this is kind of interesting because transportation typically denotes where development's happening. It is 4-lane from Plymouth moving east, but 2-lane moving west. And with that all going 4-lane, I think that's going to open up some very interesting opportunities. The Sheboygan and Fond du Lac markets always kind of view as 2 separate markets because one's in the 41 corridor, the other one's in the 43 corridor. And I'm curious to see if this is going to start to bridge the gap and that we look at the Sheboygan Fond du Lac market as one giant market versus 2 completely separate entities. And I think Plymouth is in the perfect position to take advantage of that. The amount of recreational investment in this community is truly outstanding, and is coming from different areas. The school district is building a basically a giant field house with artificial turf on the inside onto its high school, be available for community use as well. This is a truly unique facility. I'm kind of excited to see how it's going to turn out. It should be open in time for the next school district year. But from a city perspective, the parks and the park investment the City of Plymouth has made is truly spectacular. And so when we look at, which Plymouth is really an apple pie type community, very family orientated, and it continues to reinvent itself in this area. And right now it's making huge investments in its parks. It is the only community in Sheboygan County that actually has an aquatic center. Not even Sheboygan or Sheboygan Falls boasts an aquatic center, so that is utterly unique. Matter of fact, Plymouth is the only community too that has a ski hill run by its park system. So again, the recreational amenities for this community, particularly outdoor, are world-class and one kind in this area. It also has partnered to create a very unique facility called Generations. This is run by a nonprofit. It is kind of their senior community center. It also has a daycare, and it does general programming for the community. Probably most known for its senior aspects. And there's a lot of developable land around here. So, if someone's looking at targeting, that baby boomer condo development meant for people who still want to, that want to downsize, this might be a really good area to key in on. But ultimately, this is truly, again, another world-class facility focused on creating community and recreational opportunities within Plymouth. Partnerships. One thing I don't know if you've heard several times in this thing is there's a lot of partnerships happening. And Plymouth was absolutely pivotal to one partnership to bring back freight rail service to both Plymouth and Sheboygan Falls. What happened is years ago is a line was embargoed by the Union Pacific, and there was an opportunity to reinstate freight rail service and provide service back to customers using Wisconsin and Southern Railroad. Through the west of the county. This was an effort to raise about $13 million to rebuild the freight rail line. And Plymouth was definitely Plymouth, City of Sheboygan Falls, the county, the SCEDC, about 6 private businesses kind of all pooled in money and resources and successfully rebuilt freight rail service. As far as I know, this was the first time in the nation's history freight rail service was restored after a line was abandoned. Again, proving that working together, you can make things happen that most people feel are impossible. The City of Plymouth runs its own electric utility, runs its water and sewer utilities. And as a result, they have a pretty good handle on where the infrastructure is and a pretty good handle on where they feel that the most developable sites are. Several maps have been created in coordination with the community. That does not mean that these sites are for sale. It does not mean that these sites will sell at good prices. It simply means that these are the sites most logical to develop, and the city would be interested in talking to anyone who would be interested in making something happen as long as it fit the long-range plan and the vision for the community. Another thing that makes Plymouth unique is it does have a historically designated downtown, which essentially means that if anyone wants to buy a building and rehab it, they don't need to do any extra work. Both state and federal historical tax credits are available for anything to be done historically. This was an effort that happened a couple years ago. There have been 2 projects in their downtown that have taken advantage of this new historic designation, but again, it makes it a little bit unique and certainly gives another reason why someone would think about investing in the City of Plymouth. Another amazing partnership that happened, and specifically along the lines of the historic, is this building. This is 133 East Mill. This was the condition of a building about 2 or 3 years ago on Plymouth's Main Street in a very prominent location. And essentially their redevelopment authority worked with the city, worked with the Sheboygan County EDC, with us, and essentially got very creative to bring this building back to its glory and create kind of a fun retail cheese center / tribute to the local cheese industry. It's a great place to go visit, but ultimately what got this done was creative financing. And we at the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation love problem solving to get deals done on the financial end. But what makes Plymouth a little bit unique is that we're good at it. the city administrator of Plymouth, and I'm specifically going to mention Brian Jurgis, is a master at this. If any developer has a project that if it can't get done in Plymouth with creative financing, it's just not going to get done anywhere else in the world. And so that's one true advantage of the City of Plymouth. That it has leadership who understands a lot of these tools and has for the right projects and the right companies, even their municipal leadership has had faith and trust in using some of these tools to make things happen. And that's just a huge testimony to the community, because that does not happen everywhere. So with that, if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation, reach out to the Plymouth Chamber, reach out to the City of Plymouth about development opportunities in the community. I think that one of the biggest messages here is that we are here to partner with you. We are here to provide any guidance that we can and make any connections that we can. Ultimately, we want to see Plymouth, Wisconsin thrive, because without that, our businesses don't thrive, our individuals don't thrive, and quite frankly, we're here to make our communities better. And so with that, thank you for your time, and hope to see you developing soon in Plymouth, Wisconsin. Thank you.